What's a fact from history that seems too dark to be true? How about how every actor almost died while making The Wizard of Oz? Like, it was so crazy while filming, one of the Munchkins actually brought a firearm to set to settle a feud. And before I get into it, I did a whole dark deep dive on this movie and The Exorcist, so definitely listen to that episode. So let's start with the Wicked Witch. While doing this stunt, the woman playing the Wicked Witch actually gets caught on this trap door that's supposed to bring her down, and she's stuck in the fireball. She was immediately rushed to the hospital with third-degree burns all over her face. When Judy Garland was cast, she was only 14 years old, and her body was rapidly changing. So to make sure her body didn't change too much while filming, the studio prescribed her amphetamines to suppress her appetite. And Judy Garland would go on to struggle with addiction for the rest of her life. Then there's how the Tin Man's makeup was made of toxic aluminum. The first man they cast to play the Tin Man suffered neurological damage so bad that his hands and arms would cramp up on set and he couldn't use them. There's stories about how the lion costume was so hot that Burt Lahr would almost pass out from heat exhaustion every day. And then this is the craziest one, but one of the Munchkins' wives was cheating on him with the mayor of Munchkinland. So the actor brought a firearm to set one day so that he could tell the mayor to back off. Luckily, the production team caught it before anything happened, but they just confiscated the firearm and let him keep coming to work. Anyways, there's so many crazy stories from that set and the set of The Exorcist, and if you want to hear more of the dark history and if they were potentially cursed, definitely check out this episode.
This teenager vanished on her morning run. A strange confession would raise more questions than answers. Rachel Cook was 19 years old, attending junior college in San Diego. It was the 10th of January 2002, and it was actually winter break, so she was staying with her parents in Georgetown, Texas. On the day in question, her mum Janet left to go to work at around 8 a.m. Now, Rachel had actually been sleeping at the time that her mum left for work. When she woke up, she decided to go on her normal morning run. Now, Rachel was a good runner and regularly ran about 4 miles per day. She's believed to have left the house at around 9:30. An eyewitness did reportedly see Rachel that morning. It was reportedly around 11 a.m. near her finish spot. Now, this actually wasn't far from her parents' house. However, when her dad got home at around 3 p.m. that day, Rachel was nowhere to be found. Her family got really concerned and a huge search began for the missing teen. A white car was reportedly seen in the area that morning, but frustratingly the case went cold. The case was aired on Unsolved Mysteries and America's Most Wanted in 2002. No one really had any more information until 2006. That was when a shocking confession came from an inmate called Michael Moore. He confessed to murdering Rachel. He claimed that he'd abducted her and killed her. He said he disposed of her body on the Gulf of Mexico. However, he later retracted the statement and said that he made up the confession in order to gain preferential treatment. It's unknown whether the statement was accurate or not. Rachel's dad sadly passed away in 2014, still not knowing what happened to his missing daughter. It's been 22 years and still Rachel remains missing.
Do you know about history's most unusual fashion trend? Well, in the 15th century, having the largest forehead possible was a symbol of beauty, high intelligence, and class. And people went to extreme lengths to achieve this look, like plucking their hairline several inches or applying acidic creams that burned their hair away. So what will people say about our trends in the future?
Curtain number 1 is correct.
If you're alone in the woods at night and you think you hear someone whispering from behind you, run. It could be Walking Sam. According to Native American folklore, Walking Sam is a malicious spirit which presents itself as a 7-foot-tall, shadowy figure wearing a wide-brimmed hat with 2 glowing eyes and no mouth. It is said that it travels from forest to forest within the United States, collecting the souls of the people who have ended their lives therein to keep as trophies which it dangles from its long black arms. But it's not enough to simply collect the souls of the dead. It lusts after the souls of the living as well. If it encounters you, it will follow you and whisper in your ear, trying to convince you that your life is worthless in the hopes that you will end it all and become another trophy in its collection. Tag a friend you care about to remind them that they matter to you. And remember,
With today being Easter, here's a terrifying story of Bunnyman Bridge. Bunnyman Bridge is a bridge located in Northern Virginia. The story takes place in 1904. Located close to Bunnyman Bridge was an insane asylum, which one night was transporting a couple of inmates, where the car randomly crashed, having all of the inmates freed, taking the county a couple days to find all of them. After they were all found, there was only one missing, and at the time that person was missing forever. The story goes that when people went near the bridge, they found a bunch of unalived bunnies, as if someone was eating them, which people assumed was probably the escaped prisoner who had nowhere else to go. Then one Halloween night, a group of teenagers decided to go to Bunnyman Bridge. They were there hanging out having a great time, and all of a sudden they saw a flash of light. And the next morning when someone was passing over Bunnyman Bridge, they ended up seeing a bunch of teenagers just hanging out there, if you know what I mean. Completely turned inside out. Almost something out of a horror movie. And that's where the tale of the Bunnyman Bridge comes in. It's stated that if you go to Bunnyman Bridge, you say Bunnyman, do a bunch of weird things, there's a possible chance that this Bunnyman comes out of nowhere. And if he gets you, he more or less unalives you. Now yes, Bunnyman Bridge is an urban legend. Kind of something like the Goat Man. But if you really think about it, does it really make sense? On Halloween night, isn't the portal between the human and the other realm a little bit thinner? Would it make it possible for something like this to come through? Me personally, I don't know. If this video gets 100,000 likes, I'll visit Bunnyman Bridge and see what's really going on there.
The girl you are looking at, or should I say the child you are looking at, is about to do something that she has planned for months. This is 12-year-old Emma Brown, who is standing next to her father named Daniel, who is 38 years old at this time. See, Emma had a friend and the two met each other online somehow. They instantly became good friends, and then something sinister started to happen between their conversations. They wanted to run away together, and they figured the best way to do this would be each of them kill their entire families, and then one of them would drive their parents' car to pick the other one up. Now, on September 18th, 2022, Daniel is in the living room watching TV when Emma came behind him and pulled the trigger. While her father is on the ground bleeding out, Emma ran out of the front door, went into the driveway, and then she turned the gun on herself. Paramedics quickly arrived, and Emma and Daniel both made it to the hospital. Her dad recovered from the gunshot wound, but Emma later died just 2 days later, succumbing to her injuries. The other girl she was friends with was arrested before she could carry out her plan, but I have to wonder what would make a 12-year-old girl want to kill her father. It's honestly a tragedy for everybody involved, but make sure to like and follow for more true crime stories tomorrow.
They are said to be responsible for thousands of missing children in Alaska. This is the Kolupalik. It is an Inuit legend that hunts the waters of their land in northern Alaska. Even though these creatures are in the water, they are far from what you think mermaids and sirens look like. They are more fishy in appearance, with greasy yet slimy hair, and scaly skin with webbed fingers. They are said to lure unsuspected children into the water with their humming. And if the children aren't near the water enough, they will snatch them through the ice. Before we continue this story, you see this thing snatch your kid down into the water. What are you doing? Leave your answers down below. Me personally, we don't have to panic. I can just make another one. They put them in these large fur jackets and pouches called emotics and swim them down into the deep, dark, cold water, feeding on the children's young, innocent energy in order to stay immortal forever. Countless mothers even today warn their children every day not to venture alone too close to the water. Now this right here is supposedly a movie prop, but this is exactly what one would look like if you saw it. So if you're ever in Alaska, make sure you're staying safe away from the waters.
If you don't believe evil exists, watch this.
Welcome back to our YouTube channel. Day 3 after murdering somebody.
Whoa! Don't put that on the camera.
It was worth it.
This is Daniel Halsett, and this is his 16-year-old daughter named Sierra. See, Daniel enjoyed making travel and fitness videos, but all of that would come to an end when his own daughter had plotted his murder. Now, this is Sierra's 18-year-old boyfriend named Aaron Guerrero, and Daniel did not approve of the relationship because of the age difference, and he wasn't alone in that because her own mother didn't either. Well, the parents came together and they decided to ban Sierra from seeing him to hopefully split the two apart. But it wasn't long that the couple had conjured up a plan to get rid of her father once and for all. Daniel was stabbed 70 times, had his body dismembered, and then they burned him to cover it up. The two then stole her father's car and traveled 400 miles away before eventually being captured. At the sentencing, Aaron at least apologized for what he did, but his own daughter did not. They are both obviously still locked away. However, Aaron has started recently blaming LSD for making him do this. What a joke, and if it was up to me, both of them would be given the death penalty the exact same way they did her father. That's all for the video. Make sure to like and follow for tomorrow's video.
Is the number 666 so cursed that just seeing it can cause bad things to happen? Well, what if I told you there used to be a Highway 666 in America, but they had to change the number because they thought it was attracting demonic entities? And before I get into it, the first omen looks to answer the question of just how demonic the number 666 really is. So Highway 666 was a highway that went from Utah to Arizona, and even though it wasn't that long, it quickly became one of the deadliest highways in America. And not only that, but people were constantly seeing apparitions and ghosts along the highway. One of the biggest complaints was these angry looking dogs that had these white but bloodshot eyes. People thought they were hellhounds that were attracted to Highway 666 because that number is associated with the devil. Well, in the trailer for the first omen, the number 666 pops up everywhere. Is it a mark of the beast? I'm dying to know what it means, and I am definitely going to see it in theaters April 5th when it comes out.
If this doesn't disturb you, I don't know what will. 2 weeks ago, a 15-year-old in Utah contacted the police and claimed that their own parents had been assaulting them for over a year. So the identity of the victims and the perpetrator have been concealed for now, but this is what we know. Apparently, about a year ago, the parents of the victim found that their child had been Snapchatting and engaging with chats with strangers online, and that these chats with strangers had been graphic, if you know what I mean. These two parents then decided that it would be safer if they engaged in these graphic acts with their own daughter instead. This led to a year and a half of abuse by the victim's stepfather, abuse that her mother allegedly joined in on. When the victim's stepfather was arrested, he admitted right away that he had been engaging in these acts with his daughter. The stepfather also admitted to the police that he and his wife went out and bought toys to use on their daughter. It seems as if the victim's mother and father felt like they needed to show their daughter how to use these devices, and so they did. So the suspects are currently being held in jail because they have 4 more children together. This time they are their biological children. And that's the reason why they're being held, because the authorities believe that these two parents may be a significant threat to their own kids. Now, we talk about stuff like this all the time on my TikTok, whether it's murder stories, stories about pedophiles, all types of true crime. And this is just one of those stories that I came across that truly disturbs me to my core. These were 2 normal-seeming parents from Utah. They probably had friends and family that loved and respected them up until they were caught. And it goes to show that you really just don't know anybody. And I'm sure that as more and more details are revealed from this story, it's going to get even more disturbing.
To avoid possible contamination through the air, please keep shelter in your residence until further notice. If you are a resident of King County, please stand by for further updates.
This is a disturbing case of the Slender Man stabbing. On the morning of the 31st of May 2014, a man on a bike ride in Wisconsin made a shocking discovery. A 12-year-old girl, Peyton Leutner, was lying on the grass covered in blood. The day prior, the young girl had been at a sleepover with some of her friends. She hadn't realised that the sleepover had been a trick to lure her into the woods to murder her. 2 years before what the media dubbed the Slender Man stabbing, Peyton had met her friend Morgan at school. The pair had become friends when Peyton noticed her sitting alone in the cafeteria and felt sorry for her. The two became close, and then they made another friend, Anissa Weir. Anissa, on the left here, was described as a cruel girl. She seemed really jealous of the friendship between Peyton and Morgan. As their friendship grew, Anissa and Morgan became obsessed with the internet meme Slender Man. Slender Man was a tall, faceless man with long arms who turned viral when people would Photoshop him into creepy images. The mythical man would prey on young children and lure them into the woods to kill people. Shockingly, around December 2013, Morgan and Anissa concocted a plan to kill someone in order to show their dedication to the fictional Slender Man. Their plan was to invite Peyton to Morgan's birthday to get her alone, and then lure her into the woods and kill her. Morgan actually described this as a flawless plan. As the girls started their walk to the woods, Morgan snuck a knife from her kitchen into her waistband. They then completely blindsided poor Peyton. Morgan jumped on top of her and started stabbing her. The two perpetrators then run off, claiming that they were going to go and get help. The young girl was left to struggle on her own and crawl towards the road to get help. When the cyclist discovered her, an ambulance arrived and nurses noted that she had 19 stab wounds. She had 6 hours of intensive surgery but miraculously survived. The girls were charged with attempted first-degree intentional homicide. Now, the jury actually found Morgan not criminally responsible due to schizophrenia. She was sentenced to 40 years in a mental health institution. Anissa had apparently experienced shared psychotic disorder and was sentenced to 25 years in a mental health institution.
This town is so haunted they had to permanently close it to the public. This is Dudleytown, Connecticut. Dudleytown, Connecticut is a haunted, abandoned town in Cornwall, Connecticut, and has a creepy history. Visitors who have explored there say that once they enter, it's otherworldly in there. Creepy. First of all, it's reportedly completely silent. You can't hear birds, animals, bugs, nothing. A researcher compared entering the heart of Dudleytown to standing inside a recording studio booth. Another common complaint from visitors is that a lot of the photos they take in Dudleytown won't develop, but as soon as they leave, their cameras will work just fine. Which makes sense, as I had a really hard time finding really any photos of Dudleytown when I was researching. The creepy legend of the town is years ago, the Dudley family fled to the US after one of their family members was taken care of after plotting against King Henry VIII. They settled in Connecticut and the bad luck followed. Residents of Dudleytown began suffering a series of devastating crop failures and mental illness was rampant in the village. There were countless mysterious disappearances within the village and all-around chaos overwhelmed Dudleytown. By the early 1900s, it was completely abandoned. For fans of the Conjuring films based on paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren, the two visited Dudleytown and outright declared that it was extremely haunted and controlled by something terrifying. Investigators agreed that Dudleytown is some kind of a portal. But here's where it goes from spooky to downright bizarre. The owners, the Dark Entry Forest Association, closed Dudleytown to the public and don't do anything to dispel the rumors. In fact, they refuse to be interviewed for the most part, and the owners go to great lengths to conceal their identities. On top of that, if you are caught trespassing in Dudleytown, you will be heavily prosecuted. This is so strange to me. We see so many other ghost towns around the world, and usually they keep these places open for tourism. You know, profit off the history and the spookiness. But for some reason, this association wants to keep people out of Dudleytown altogether. A paranormal researcher said there's some kind of secret that they are keeping there, and they want people to stay out. What are your thoughts? This has been requested a couple times. Has anyone ever been? Or are there any towns by you that you find to be really creepy?
But I can only imagine what it was like describing a tiger to other people thousands of years ago.
I made that video almost 3 years ago and I finally have an answer. The answer was manticores. We got manticores out of ancient humans. Allow me to explain. In my original video, I was asking how did ancient humans perceive tigers? And with a little digging, I found out this is where we got the legend of the Manticore from. The giant ancient monster that has the head of a man, the body of a lion, and the tail of a scorpion. That being said, how did we get this and perceive it as this? It's a little more obvious than you think. And keep in mind, the origin of this monster goes back way further than its medieval legends. According to Britannica.com, historians believe that ancient Greek traders, when they did business in Persia and what is now Iran, the legend of the Manticore, or Manticorus, was, quote, a greatly distorted description of a Caspian tiger. But let's try to break it down. Certain legends of the Manticore describe it as having the head of a man that lures its victims in by either mimicking its victims or pretending to be an oracle. And any biologist will be able to tell you that a tiger is able to mimic the sounds of its prey in order to lure it in. That, combined with the fact that the unique coloring of a tiger's mane, makes it look like it has a beard. And let's face it, how many ancient humans were able to get close enough to a tiger and live to tell about it? But what about the scorpion tail? Where did that come from? Again, when you're terrified and you're running for your life, you really don't have long to tell the difference between that curled tail and the ridges and spines of a scorpion tail. Manticores were also described as having red fur almost to the point of scarlet. You ever see a tiger in the sunset? And there's one final piece to the Manticore legend. The name Manticoris, which also, etymologists believe, comes from the old Iranian word, man-eater. Being the biggest cat of the Panthera species, tigers are almost notoriously known for being man-eaters. A greatly distorted description is an understatement. In summary, what we know now as the legends of the Manticore were actually the terrified ramblings of a tiger attack, and those who were lucky enough to get away.